They didn't walk away from you by accident. No, it was divine strategy. Listen closely, chosen one. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. That heartbreak, that silence, that betrayal, it wasn't the end of your story. It was the holy beginning of a chapter only heaven could write. When they left you, when they turned their backs on you, when they spoke your name in rooms you weren't allowed to enter, God was already setting you apart. You weren't abandoned, you were hidden. You weren't forgotten, you were preserved. Because when you carry a sacred calling, not everyone can go with you. There is something holy about your life, something weighty about your presence. Even before you fully understood it, your spirit knew. You've always felt different, not better, just set apart. Misunderstood, unseen, surrounded, yet somehow alone. And that loneliness wasn't punishment, it was a protection. Because if they had stayed, they would have corrupted the very foundation God was building within you. Some people had to leave, not because you did something wrong, but because their energy couldn't survive where you were going. They would have sabotaged the anointing. They would have delayed the breakthrough. They would have gotten credit for something that was meant to be between you and God alone. So heaven intervened, and suddenly, silence. Suddenly, distance. Suddenly, isolation. But behind that isolation, a resurrection was forming. You didn't just survive the storm, you became the storm. Those nights when you cried yourself to sleep, they weren't in vain. That season of silence when no one checked on you, when you felt forgotten and used up, was the exact moment God started preparing the oil. It had to hurt that way because sacred things are born in secrecy. Look at every prophet, every warrior, every spiritual giant who walked with God. They had a wilderness. They had to be stripped down to the soul so God could fill them with his fire. And you, chosen one, you went through yours. Not everyone saw it, but heaven did. You learned to walk through fire with no applause. You learned to rebuild your heart with no hands helping. You faced battles no one ever saw and still chose to love, still chose to serve, still chose to believe. That's strength. That's divine endurance. And that's why you had to be separated. Because your blessing wasn't designed to be birthed in public. God wanted the unveiling to be his alone. You see, when man places you, man can remove you. But when God raises you in silence, no voice, no jealousy, no slander can undo what he ordained. You were never ordinary. The ache in your chest proved it. The way you sensed what others couldn't, how you discerned the lies, how your heart shattered every time someone tried to box you in. That was divine sensitivity, a spiritual radar. And even when people mocked you, even when they called you too emotional, too deep, too sensitive, God was nodding. Because he placed that sensitivity in you to navigate spiritual dimensions others don't even know exist. And they couldn't handle it. The truth is, they weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting the light inside of you. The way your presence confronted their shadows. The way your truth exposed their lies. The way your destiny stirred their insecurities. That's why they couldn't stay. That's why they minimized you, gossiped about you, distanced themselves from you, because you represented the awakening they weren't ready for. But here's the part they never expected. While they were busy walking away, God was quietly elevating you. In rooms they never entered, your name began to echo. In spiritual places they could never access, your authority began to grow. You weren't broken, you were being built. The pain didn't destroy you, it became your power. And while they laughed at your silence, heaven was writing your comeback. Yes, chosen one, this was never about them. It was about you and God. You see, when God raises a person, he often does it in secret. Not because he wants to hide you, but because he wants to protect what's growing. Think of a seed buried underground. It looks like nothing. It's hidden, forgotten, but deep in the dark, it's taking root. It's absorbing nutrients. It's preparing to break the surface. That seed is you. And the soil that felt like suffocation, that was your sacred training ground. And oh, when you rise, It won't be subtle. Those who once ignored you will have no choice but to witness. Not because you seek revenge, but because God vindicates those He anoints. When you show up, there will be a glow they can't explain. When you speak, there will be power they can't deny. Because it's not just you anymore, it's what you carry. It's the fire in your voice, the light in your eyes, the depth of your spirit. You've been refined, purified, made new, and the ones who abandoned you, they'll look back in shock. Not because you became loud, but because your silence turned sacred. Your tears watered your own roots. Your prayers shifted unseen dimensions. And now the very place where they left you to die has become your holy ground of resurrection. So if you've been asking, why did they leave me? Why did it hurt so much? Why did I have to walk alone? The answer is this: because God didn't want you built by their hands. He wanted to raise you Himself. And He's not done yet. There are battles you face that no one will ever understand. Wars that didn't leave visible scars but tore through your spirit like a wildfire in the night. And still, you stood. Still, you rose. You didn't just survive what they threw at you. You carried it, prayed through it, wept over it, and transformed it into wisdom. That's not just resilience. That's spiritual royalty. That's the sign of a soul marked by God. You've fought battles in the silence, chosen one, with no audience, no applause, no rescue. You cried out into the void, and the only response was more stillness. But even then, your spirit didn't bow to the darkness. You may have stumbled, you may have been shaken, but you never surrendered your light. And that's why you're different. That's why the enemy tried so hard to break you. Because you're not just any soul. You're a threat to the kingdom of darkness. Let's be clear. The attacks on your life were never about your past. They were always about your future. The moment you stepped into alignment with your higher calling, all hell tried to pull you back. But the devil underestimated the fire within you. He saw your heartache, but he didn't see your endurance. He witnessed your loss, but he missed your loyalty to the divine. He sent betrayal, but God sent protection. Every time something tried to destroy you, it only confirmed that you were carrying something precious. That's what many people don't understand. When you're chosen, your life doesn't follow the same patterns. You go through deeper betrayals, longer waiting seasons, more intense pruning, because what's coming through you is not ordinary. God isn't just preparing a life, He's preparing a legacy. He's not building a moment, He's building a movement. And you are the vessel. That's why they turned on you. That's why people you would have bled for left you to bleed alone. Not because you were weak, but because your presence exposed their lack of integrity. You weren't judging them. You were simply being you, radiating light, walking in truth, moving with a conscience they had long silenced. And instead of rising with you, they chose to turn away. Not everyone can handle the mirror your soul becomes. But don't mistake their rejection for failure. It was divine filtration. God was protecting the blueprint of your next level. He saw their intentions, their jealousy, their manipulation, long before you did. So He did what only a wise creator can do. He allowed the separation, not because He wanted you to suffer, but because He needed the voices around you to be pure. He needed your circle to be clean, and He needed you to learn to stand without needing validation. And oh, how you've stood, wounded but not weakened, weary but still worshiping. Even when you were confused, you remained committed. Even when your heart was shattered, your spirit stayed grounded in the divine. That's spiritual warfare at its highest. Not shouting, but standing. Not fighting back, but rising above. You didn't need revenge. Your obedience became your weapon. And now the silence is breaking. Because heaven is not blind. Every tear you cried was recorded. Every lie spoken against you was heard. Every time you chose love over bitterness, mercy over wrath, it was seen. While they laughed behind your back, God was writing your vindication in gold. And the irony is, they thought you were finished. They thought they buried you, but they didn't realize you were a seed. and the soil of your suffering only deepened your roots. Now you're rising, not with noise, not with vengeance, but with power. A quiet, undeniable power that can't be replicated, can't be faked, because it came from the fire. It was forged in affliction. It was born in the wilderness where no one clapped and no one cared, except God. And now that very God who hid you is about to reveal you. Your glow-up won't be cosmetic. It'll be cosmic. Because this isn't about a comeback. It's about a calling. You're not returning for applause. You're returning because heaven said, "Go forth." And the same people who once doubted you, they'll have no choice but to watch. They won't understand how you did it. They'll question why doors are opening, why your voice carries weight, why your presence shifts atmospheres. And the answer will be simple. Because you were chosen. Because you passed the test in silence. There's something terrifying to the enemy about a chosen one who suffers in silence, prays in silence, heals in silence, and still rises. It means your power doesn't come from performance. It comes from presence. The presence of the Most High that never left you, even in your darkest hour. That's why you've always been targeted. That's why you've felt like the odd one, the misunderstood one, the abandoned one. But now the tables are turning. God is about to raise you in such a way that even your enemies will be forced to acknowledge, surely the Lord was with them. This isn't just restoration, this is elevation. Not only will you recover what was lost, but you'll be given what was promised. In front of those who mocked you, in front of those who betrayed you, and not to shame them, but to show them the mercy and justice of a living God. And you'll stand in peace. Because your spirit won't need to gloat. You'll be too full of purpose, too full of clarity, too full of gratitude. You'll look back and realize that everything, every abandonment, every betrayal, every quiet night was the hand of God. He wasn't punishing you. He was positioning you. And now the silence is about to sing. There comes a time, chosen one, when heaven stops allowing the mockery to continue. When every whisper behind closed doors, every scheme plotted in shadows, every tongue that rose to condemn you is met with divine justice, and that time is now. You see, God has watched long enough. He let them think they won. He let them believe you were done for, but now He's preparing a table, and you are the honored guest. Not because you need revenge, but because justice is the nature of the divine. You were never meant to defend yourself. That's not your assignment. You weren't called to explain your worth to those who never valued you. God was never interested in your public defense. He was preparing your public vindication. Because when He raises someone, He makes no apology for it. He exposes the lies, not to humiliate others, but to reveal the truth of who you are and what you carry. You kept your integrity while others played dirty. You stayed silent while others slandered, and in doing so, you activated a law that no enemy can outrun, the law of divine reversal. It's written in the heavens, the last shall be first, and you, chosen one, were pushed to the back, ignored, overlooked. But heaven has been keeping count, and now the ones who mocked your delay will have to watch your acceleration. What took others a decade will happen for you in a divine moment. Not because of manipulation, not because of connections, but because of your obedience. You see, in the quiet, you were gaining something they never valued, spiritual weight. People often chase status, titles, recognition, but the chosen ones, they chase presence, the presence of God. And while others were building platforms, you were building an altar. You were seeking the one who called you, and that's what makes your rise unstoppable. It's not built on ego, it's built on assignment. That's why you're about to rise in a way that looks like a miracle, because it is. Not man-made, not manufactured, but holy, undeniable, authenticated by heaven, the kind of rise where doors fling open without effort, where favor follows you without begging, where your name is mentioned in rooms your feet haven't even touched yet. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. That's God saying, now is the time. But it's deeper than elevation. This is restoration. God is about to restore what the enemy stole, and not just materially. He's restoring your voice, your confidence, your trust in divine timing. He's healing the broken places you stopped talking about, the quiet grief you carried, the pain you buried so deep that even you forgot how much it cost. He's healing that too. Because before he raises you, he restores you. He doesn't want you to step into this new season carrying the wounds of the last one. That's why he took his time. That's why it felt like nothing was moving. Because God wasn't just building a future, he was rebuilding you. Stronger, wiser, unshakable. And now your spirit is ready for what your heart longed for. This isn't just about your blessing, it's about your becoming. And here's the truth they won't tell you. Sometimes your breakthrough doesn't come when you fight harder. It comes when you surrender deeper, when you let go of trying to control it, force it, explain it, when you stop trying to get them to see your worth and simply rest in the fact that God already does. That's what you've done. You stopped chasing what wasn't aligned. You stopped running after those who were never meant to stay. And in doing so, you made space for real love, real purpose, real connections. And now God is saying, watch what I do with the ones who trust me in silence. This is your moment, chosen one. Not because you earned it through perfection, but because you endured through pain. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because you walked in humility. And that posture has moved heaven. God doesn't need a crowd to promote you. He needs alignment. And because you chose alignment over applause, you're about to walk through doors you didn't even knock on. This is the kind of victory that no man can take credit for. The kind where people look at your life and say, that had to be God. Because it won't make sense to the natural eye. It won't fit the formulas they cling to. Because what God is about to do with your life is supernatural, and it's going to correct the narrative. They told the story as if you were the villain. They painted you as weak, dramatic, disposable. But God is rewriting the script. He's revealing the truth, not to shame them, but to free you. So you never again carry the weight of false labels. So you never again question your worth based on their blindness. This is freedom. Freedom from needing their approval. Freedom from performing for acceptance. Freedom from apologizing for your light. You are done shrinking. You are done hiding. You are done doubting. Because God is saying, arise, not in arrogance, but in authority. So now, step forward. Step into your calling, not with fear, but with fire. Step into your assignment, not with hesitation, but with heavenly backing. Because this time, you're not coming from a place of needing to prove. You're coming from a place of knowing. Knowing who you are, knowing who walks with you. Knowing that everything they took, every tear you cried, every night you felt forsaken, it all led to this moment. And as you step forward, never forget your silence was not your defeat. It was your training ground. It was your womb of glory. And now the same silence they thought meant you were done is the same silence God used to prepare your rise. So let them wonder. Let them ask how. Let them sit confused as blessings pour in. Not to your ego, but to your purpose. You don't owe explanations. You owe God your obedience, because this is holy. Have you ever wondered why it was you they targeted? Why you, the one who loved the hardest, gave the most, believed with purity, were the one they broke, the one they betrayed, the one they left? Chosen one, it wasn't random. It was never random. It was spiritual. When you carry divine light, you attract both favor and friction, not because of what you've done, but because of what you represent. You are not just a person. You are a mirror. You reflect what others are unwilling to see within themselves. You call out truth without even opening your mouth. You walk into a room and shift the energy, not because you're trying, but because you exist on a frequency most people spend lifetimes avoiding. And that's why they attacked you. Not because you were wrong, but because you were real. Not because you were broken, but because you carried healing. They couldn't handle your truth because your light exposed their darkness. Your authenticity was a threat. Your empathy was a mirror. Your spiritual depth unsettled their superficial world. People don't often realize this. Sometimes the attacks aren't personal, they're prophetic. Spirits recognize spirits, and the unhealed spirit in someone will always lash out at the healed spirit in you. What looked like envy, bitterness, betrayal was actually the manifestation of spiritual resistance. The enemy wasn't after your personality, he was after your purpose. Because your presence awakens people, even your silence convicts. You weren't put here to blend in. You were sent to break cycles, to confront generational wounds, to carry ancient light into a world that's addicted to shadows. And that kind of calling, it terrifies people, especially those who've built their identity on illusions. That's why they abandoned you, not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't control you. People will walk away when they realize they cannot manipulate the one who walks with God. You see, your soul doesn't move according to man's validation, and that makes you untouchable in the spirit. It makes you dangerous to systems, to patterns, to strongholds, because you've tasted the divine, you've felt the fire, and now you can't unsee what God showed you in the dark. They called it madness, but it was revelation. They called you unstable, but it was your awakening. They said you were too emotional, too intense, too much, but that was only because they had spent their lives being too numb. You see, the world tells us to numb, to pretend, to shrink, but your soul, it refused. You loved deeply, felt deeply, saw deeply, and they couldn't stand it because you represented a version of themselves they were too afraid to meet. That's why they had to leave. Not because they hated you, but because their demons recognized your light and couldn't breathe in it. You stirred something, not out of intention, but out of spiritual alignment. You walked in authenticity while they wore masks. You moved in integrity while they played roles. And deep down, it terrified them. They didn't betray you. They betrayed their own higher selves in your presence. And God allowed it. As painful as it was, He let the betrayal happen. He let the separation come because He knew if they had stayed, they would have sabotaged your sanctification. You needed the silence, the solitude, the pruning, because your mission requires clarity that can't be found in noise. Chosen one, your soul's mission was never to be understood by the masses. It was to be obedient to the one who called you. That's why your path has been narrow. That's why the road felt lonely. It's not because you're broken. It's because you're being built differently. God doesn't use the same formula for those carrying unique assignments. He isolates, then initiates. He strips, then equips. He wounds, then anoints. Because your oil can't be mixed with anything impure. And let's be honest, some of those relationships, those circles, those environments, they weren't just unhelpful. They were unholy. You knew it. You felt it. You ignored it for a while, trying to hold on, hoping they'd change, praying they'd awaken. But at some point, God stepped in. Not because you were weak, but because He loved you too much to let you keep drinking poison and calling it water. So He let them abandon you to save your destiny. And that's the paradox. God used their betrayal to bless you. He used their exit to expand you, their rejection to redirect you. And now that you've survived the stripping, you're stepping into the sacred. You're starting to realize you didn't lose them. They lost access to you. Because who you're becoming, they couldn't handle it even if they tried. And now you're walking in awareness. You're seeing people clearly. You're recognizing patterns. You no longer feel the need to over-explain, to overgive, to overstay. You're moving differently, not out of bitterness, but out of balance. Because now you understand your energy is sacred. Your presence is powerful. Your time is precious. You were never meant to be available to everyone. You were meant to be assigned. And that's why your life had to be cleansed, so that when the elevation came, it would be pure, so that when the doors opened, your hands would be clean, so that when the platform arrived, your heart would be healed. God didn't just want to give you the promise. He wanted you to be prepared to carry it. Because you're not just rising for you. You're rising for everyone who comes after you. You're breaking chains that were wrapped around generations. You're shifting atmospheres into ways no one has language for. You're carrying healing not just in your words, but in your existence. And that's why the warfare was so brutal. That's why the abandonment hurt so deep. Because your soul is not here for comfort. It's here for impact. And now you understand. What they meant for harm, God used for glory. What they tried to bury, God used to build. You're not rising with vengeance, you're rising with vision. You're not rising to prove them wrong, you're rising to prove God right. This is sacred. This is spiritual. This is your mission. Look at you now, chosen one. Still standing, still breathing, still carrying light, even after walking through shadows that tried to consume you. You may not realize it, but you're already proof of resurrection. You're living, breathing evidence that divine favor is real and unstoppable, that no matter who left, no matter how hard they tried to dim your light, you are still rising. Because the power on your life didn't come from people, it came from purpose. You weren't created to be accepted by everyone. You were born to be set apart, and the ones who couldn't handle your process were never worthy of your promise. So let the past be the past. Let their absence be your confirmation. Let their betrayal become your fuel, not your prison. Because now you know, your rejection was your redirection. Your abandonment was sacred. It hurt, yes, deeply, but it was necessary. The silence, the separation, the solitude, it wasn't empty. It was full of purpose. Every sleepless night was a seed. Every tear was watering something invisible. And now the harvest is beginning to break through the soil, quietly, powerfully, without permission, without announcement. Heaven is raising you, and this time not in front of false friends or spectators looking for drama. This time God is raising you in front of witnesses, not so you can say, "I told you so," but so you can finally exhale and say, "I survived." You made it through the dark. You didn't lose your soul. You didn't become bitter. You didn't give up. And because of that, there is a crown of purpose being placed on your life that no man can remove. Let it sink in. The worst is behind you. And no, that doesn't mean life will be perfect from here, but it means you're entering a different dimension. You're no longer reacting. You're responding. You're no longer searching. You're walking in alignment. You're no longer broken. You're becoming the healed version, the free version, the anointed version, the unapologetic version of you that heaven always intended. And now that you've been through the silence, the wilderness, the waiting, you are ready to carry what they could never handle. Let go of needing them to see you now. Let go of hoping they'll apologize or return. Some people were only assigned to your beginning. They were never meant to witness your rise. Because if they stayed, they would have tried to own the story. But this story is yours and God's, and the glory of your elevation will never belong to those who walked away. It will belong to the one who stayed with you when everyone else disappeared. You were never alone, even in your lowest moments. God was there, listening when no one heard, holding you when no one noticed, healing you when no one could tell how much pain you were in. It was Him. Every step, every breath, every breakthrough, and now He's bringing you full circle, from silent suffering to sacred strength, from isolation to elevation, from heartbreak to holy fire. So rise, not to prove them wrong, but to prove God right. Rise, not in fear, but in faith, because the same God who allowed the breaking is the God who ordained the blessing. And the same silence they thought would destroy you, that silence became the symphony of your strength. This is your confirmation, chosen one. You don't have to go back. You don't have to explain. You don't have to shrink. What's ahead is greater than what you lost. And what God is building in you, through you, will outlast every name they tried to bury, every lie they told, every moment you thought you were finished. You were never finished. You were hidden, and now you're about to be revealed. So walk boldly, walk humbly, walk divinely, because your steps are ordered, Your story is protected, and your future is drenched in favor. Let them watch. Let heaven lead. Let your rise begin, because the world tried to abandon you, but God never did. And now, He's raising you, for real this time.